High-priced video games tend to be expensive, so taking a gamble on a new IP has the potential to end in tears. This is why, generally speaking, established franchises make the most amount of money year in and year out. Our previous list of video games that had no right being this good celebrated the likes of 2005's King Kong and Minority Report's Everybody Runs. But you had your own ideas for titles that should have been included, and your suggestions were so good, in fact, that you left us no recourse but to craft an entirely new list of unlikely games that were more fun than their premises indicated. So I'm Si for WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 video games that had no right being this good, commenters edition. Number 10, Plants vs Zombies. The first time players unleashed a jalapeno pepper and burned through an entire row of zombies in one swift strike, they saw what a fun and absurd experience Plants vs Zombies could really be. How, though, did the concept of defending your lawn against the undead horde using sunflowers work as well as it did? Zombies for some years were an overused shambling trope that appeared in every other game, and Plants vs Zombies seemed like a shark-jumpingly silly moment too far. As it was, though, there was a method to PopCap's weirdness. The finely tuned and surprisingly tactical gameplay, not to mention the array of modes on offer, made it a fun distraction for tower defense newcomers and a challenge for genre veterans alike. Attempting to reach higher waves in survival mode was a task that humbled many and demonstrated the deviousness of the title's design. Plants vs Zombies went on to be ported to a wide array of different devices and spawned a third-person shooter spin-off in Plants vs Zombies Battle for Neighborville and the Garden Warfare series. They too are a riot of fun, and with their wide variety of character classes offer more depth than their silly aesthetic would suggest. Number 9, The Mummy Demastered. The Mummy movies may not be cinematic masterpieces, but they certainly are relentlessly entertaining. Dating all the way back to the iconic Boris Karloff star turn in the 1930s, the movies tap into the innate fascination with ancient Egyptian mummies that so many horror fans have. The video game world's take on the series have hit systems from the Game Boy Color to the Xbox One, and The Mummy Demastered is a surprising success story. The demastering process is often a fan endeavour, displaying exactly what can be done with pixel art, but The Mummy Demastered proved its worth as a solid and enjoyable Metroidvania adventure. A varied challenge and quite the looker for fans of 2D art, is an underrated gem, and players don't need to be familiar with the movies to appreciate it. With a simple minimap reminiscent of classic Metroid and a spooky vibe that's oh so Castlevania, WayForward's effort seems to have paid close attention to exactly what makes the genre tick, and at the same time its quick-paced gunplay and movement ensure that it doesn't feel too much like either inspiring series. Number 8, Def Jam Fight for New York. 2003's Def Jam Vendetta brought something truly intriguing to the wrestling genre. Well, several things. Ludacris, DMX and Redman were just 3 of them. Hip-hop legends breaking each other's bones in the ring, yes, that was a mechanic, was a thrilling sight to behold indeed, though it's come to be remembered as more of a unique novelty than for its virtues as a wrestling title outright. Its sequel, Def Jam Fight for New York, might never have happened. It did though, and it expanded the fighter roster, vastly improved the depth of the gameplay by allowing players to select from custom styles, and even introduced a long and gripping narrative to the proceedings, something unfortunately lacking in most fighters to this day. As the title suggests, the story revolves around battles for popularity and control of New York's clubs. The story is unrelenting, well implemented in the bouts, and all around surprisingly good, as is the package itself. Few games take the player on a ride like this one, which was quite the pleasant surprise indeed. This was probably the last place players were expecting to find an engrossing plot. Number 7, Stray. Dark and dystopian open worlds are nothing new to hardened gamers. Piecing together exactly what happened to such a dark realm as you pick your way through it is an intriguing experience. Stray offers exactly that. Games played as our feline friends are often cutesy virtual pet affairs, and this may have been what some expected from Blue 12's 2022 title when it first arrived on the scene. As it was though, it proved to be a gripping and enigmatic journey of real substance. Murtaugh might act like a real cat, down to cheekily knocking certain items off of ledges, and have a designated meow button, but his journey is tense, gripping and perilous. Those Zerks are as menacing as any foes seen in gaming recently, and Stray has an atmosphere and frightening vibe all of its own. The enigmatic machines who also reside here have a personality and melancholy feel that only enhances this further. Stray is the kind of experience that sticks with you regardless of your love, or perhaps lack thereof, of our feline friends. There's never really been a cyberpunk experience quite like it. Number 6, Stardew Valley. Farming sims have become a huge deal in recent years. They've also become increasingly elaborate, with the likes of Sakuna of Rise and Ruin and Harvestella introducing combat mechanics, other resource gathering and an awful lot more besides. At the time of its launch, Stardew Valley was something quite extraordinary. A life sim of sorts, complete with dungeon crawling, social relationships to maintain, fishing and other pursuits. It's like a more involved pixel art Animal Crossing, and it's quite something that it was designed by one person. Faithfully and painstakingly updated for so long after its release, Stardew Valley is a true labour of love and a beloved classic. It's managed to hook the most hardened of gamers, many of whom may have scoffed at it prior to taking the plunge. No title has quite mastered the formula of time management and filling days with activities as Stardew Valley has. With its town events, interior decoration elements, and the increasing depths of its dungeons, there's a ludicrous amount of content on offer here, whichever facet of life in the valley appeals to you the most. Number 5. CHEX Quest. The concept of licensed games certainly doesn't fill gamers with confidence. The concept of a title based on a breakfast cereal you'd think would be even less auspicious. Nonetheless, it happened, and it was pulled off with aplomb. In the wake of the continuing to this day controversy regarding the rip and tear gore of Doom, there was only one logical course for Digital Cafe to take. Been the beloved Ultimate Doom, famous for being even more delightfully horrific than the original release, into something entirely different. How different? Well, CHEX Quest is a blood-free romp starring the CHEX warrior, whose weapons are teleportation devices of sorts rather than implements of mass bloody death. The whole thing still revolves around an incursion by lots of creatures, but these snotty phlegmoids are far less threatening than cacodemons, barons of hell, and other such ghastly doom dwellers. CHEX Quest is a relic from a bygone era when fantastic things were provided as free gifts in cereal boxes, and perhaps one of the greatest marketing endeavours gaming has ever seen. And all this aside, it's fun in its own right, against all odds. Number 4. X-Men Origins Wolverine. James Howlett, or Wolverine as you might know him, certainly isn't alone in having a grim and harrowing Marvel backstory. Many other comic book legends, however, haven't had it as thoroughly explored in other media as Logan's has been. 2009 movie X-Men Origins Wolverine, as the title suggests, follows some of the personal, tragic and blood-soaked past that made Wolverine who he is. He tends to fight on the side of good, yes, but he's no conventional hero. Those claws are a perfect fit for a vicious, gory, face-to-face combat style, and he engages in just that during the movie and the video game of the same name. The game may play it fast and loose with the plot at times, but ultimately this isn't so important. A stylish brawler through and through, X-Men Origins Wolverine may not be the longest experience, but it can be a joyful hack-and-slash stress reliever. There are even RPG elements that allow players to develop their character as he gains experience. A style over substance approach could have easily been taken here, but the developers went the extra mile to craft a game that both looked and played well. Number 3. Mad Max. In a similar fashion to X-Men Origins, Mad Max took the most thrilling, visceral action from the movie of the same name and ran with it. There are parallels to be drawn between the setting of Mad Max and the original Borderlands in that the player must traverse a vast and unfriendly expanse that has been claimed by violent bandits. Vehicle combat is quite a challenge for developers, and few games have managed to make it feel as brutal, satisfying and purely destructive as the concept promises. Mad Max, for some, delivers that. It's not the most narrative-driven and complex of experiences, but nor is it supposed to be. If you can overlook the storytelling shortcomings, the action delivered here is a blast, often literally. The franchise is known for its bombastic, over-the-top action, and this has always been a very difficult thing for developers to do justice to in video game adaptations. As with X-Men Origins Wolverine though, it's a grim and visceral experience that is far from perfect, but battles to do right by the source material. Number 2. MANEATER. All of that silly Sharknado business put a bit of a dent in the fearsome image that sharks have developed in the media. Then again, real-life sharks are far from the ravenous, human-devouring monsters they're often portrayed as. But nonetheless, the chance to play as one of these formidable creatures offers ample opportunity for mayhem. MANEATER could have easily been a throwaway, silly, button-mashing, bloody adventure, and while there are elements of these things, it's also a surprisingly in-depth action RPG. There's a significant amount of content to get your huge bull shark's teeth into without everything seeming to drag as an open-world title can sometimes do. The narrative is also engaging enough and has been elaborated on through DLC to keep the player progressing, and the evolution element ensures that the player certainly isn't any normal shark. The evolution mechanic ensures that there's always something to be progressing towards in a world that steadily opens up as the vicious protagonist becomes larger and more capable. As a concept, MANEATER could have easily gotten a little stale quite quickly as the initial novelty wore off, but this shark tale is one worth sticking around for in full. And number 1, White Knight Chronicles. The RPG genre is perhaps the biggest and most varied of all. For many gamers, it's dominated by the heavy hitters, the Final Fantasies, the Dragon Quest, the Xeno series, to name just a few. A lot of genre fans have their favourite franchises and become entirely immersed in it, but there are also so many RPG series that fly under the radar of even aficionados and don't get the appreciation they deserve. White Knight Chronicles is certainly one of these. The original game launched in 2008 in Japan, a level 5 creation that boasts all the familiar RPG tropes. From its fantasy setting to its princess rescuing plot, the adventures of Leonard, his White Knight persona, and his friends don't break any particularly new ground. What it does offer though is a substantial engrossing adventure and a creative battle system revolving around giving a series of commands to party members to ensure everyone works in tandem with the one-player controlled character. The series saw 2 further installments, and every release is in fact worth the attention of any RPG fan, even if it seems like nobody's ever heard of it. Don't you love being surprised by games that were way better than you were anticipating? Let us know your favourites down in the comments below that fit under this heading, and of course you can check out the original video which is on screen now. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, the notification bell, all that good stuff. You can head over to WhatCulture.com for more content every day. I've been Cy for WhatCulture, and have a good week.